there, we are on the home stretch of how to build a website from the very beginning. We've gotten a long ways and we're going to get a lot of the wrap-up work done in this video. Now, if you've missed any of the videos before, I'm going to put a link in the description to the whole playlist. So in this video, we're dealing with images, and I've specifically left images and content out because so much of web development has already happened. It happens in the layout. All of web development, or all of HTML and CSS development, should I say, is layout and then content that goes in those layout blocks. So we've done the layout, we've done a lot of the hard work already, and it might not look like much, but we've gotten a lot of the website done already. So there's two ways we're going to add images into this to really take it a long way and make it look like a complete website. So the two ways you add images is by simply adding an IMG tag, which instead of adding an H1 with text, we'll add an image with a picture in it. The IMG tag is used when you want to add an image that's actually considered a part of content. So instead of inserting text, I would insert an image that is considered a piece of the article, so to speak. The other main way that you actually use way more often is using CSS to add a background image to things. So in this case, for this header, which is this black box here, I'd use CSS to make a background image on that whole header. It's not considered a part of the content. It's a part of the design, which is why you use it a whole lot more, because web pages in terms of images are way more design than content. So those are the two ways we're going to get into. And this video might be a little bit longer because there's a lot of dialogue. There's a lot more that I want to describe as I'm going to teach you how to use images appropriately in your web pages. So stay tuned. There's a lot of great information in this one. But first, we need some images. To do that, I looked up Artisan Bakery, and lo and behold, there's one in Edwardsville, Illinois. So we're going to snatch some images for this to use on our website, which is not legal to do, but for practicing and developing at home, it's a great idea. Basically, just right-click on any image, save image as. So find any images you like, right-click on an image, save image as. So I've saved some images here. Let's go ahead and close that out. And free promo for you, Artisan Bakery. And so I've got an images folder now. That's important to know where you put those images. Just like referencing CSS, you've got to reference the images where they are. So images / and then here's all my images. I got a logo, which is a PNG. PNGs are great because they can be transparent. As you can see, the background is showing through. And then I've got a hero. I'm going to use this for the banner here. Then I've got goods, coffee, and breads, and I'm going to use those in these blocks here. And I think I'm going to turn them into circles. So there's my images. Let me go close that folder view out and the breads. And so let's go ahead and get started. Let's start up here with the header. I'm going to make a menu, add a logo here in the middle. Then I'm going to make a background image up here. This is going to be using our first method, which is CSS for background images. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to, right in the middle, put the logo. I'm going to add an LI with an A tag. And I'm also going to make this an A tag because I want when you click on the logo for it to go to the home page. That's kind of a normal thing to do. You want that logo to always take you home. And I'm going to add a title here. I'm going to say Artisan Bakery logo. So there we go. That is now going to add a link up there, which needs to be a logo. And I intentionally added this text here because it's a good idea, again, to always make it semantic. It should read like what it actually is. And the reason that's important is because there's a lot of people out there that are visually impaired, visually disabled, and they're going to use screen readers to visit your website. And they can fully browse the internet with a screen reader as long as the web developers do it semantically correct. Nobody wants to be that jerk that builds a business building that doesn't have a wheelchair ramp, right? And you don't want to be the jerk that builds a website that people can't view with a screen reader when they're visually disabled or impaired because you just didn't take the time to add in a couple little text elements. So as you can see, just by reading this, it doesn't matter how it looks. I know that this is the logo and it's going to take me to the home page. So now I can go over to CSS and actually turn this into a pretty logo. First of all, I'm going to add a class logo. So header class logo can now be targeted. There's the logo and there's the A tag inside of the logo LI. And let me give this thing a background color of red. I always like to give it a background color when I'm working with something just so I can see what that box is doing. I'm going to give it a width of 300. And this will do nothing because it's display inline by default. I need to change this to display inline block. And now, boom, 300 wide. And then I can also give it a height here. Let's go like 80 pixels. And now that that's going, I can get rid of this text. A little trick that you can use to get rid of text is called text indent. And then since it's display block, I can tell the text to just kind of go way far left. So I'm going to go negative 9999 pixels. And that's going, boom, way off the screen to where no one will ever see it. What's great about this is, again, it's semantically correct. You can read that it's a link, and you can read that the link text says Artisan Bakery logo, but you're never going to see it. So now that that's there, I can add a background image. Now, before I add a background image, let me describe a little bit more of what this background property does. This is actually shorthand. If you'll remember, margin is shorthand for margin top, margin right, margin bottom, margin left. You can actually add a bunch of things in there. Background is the same way. It's background color, background image, repeat. It just keeps going. So if you're going to do anything more than color or image, then I like to use the actual broken out ones. Background color, red. And that's going to do the exact same thing. Just like you can break out margin right, margin top, you can break out background. And there are a lot of options. You can see if I just do that, there's a lot of options here that I can use for background. So let's go background image, and let's go URL, which means we're going to pull in an image. And then I open and close the parentheses. Now in quotes in here, I just go pick my image. Images, logo.png. And boom, I got my logo in there. Awesome. And I also got rid of the background color. Now you can notice that this logo is a lot bigger than I actually want it to display. This is the first important thing about images on the web. Make your images double the size and then shrink them down to the size you want inside the browser. This is simply because not all devices have the same pixel resolution. I don't know if you follow the tech specs on new iPhones and stuff like that, but they're always trying to cram as many more pixels onto the screen as possible to make it as smooth and as detailed as it can possibly be. So when the web started out, monitors used to be 72 pixels per inch, and now they're up in the hundreds, 140s, 180s. I forget what the latest ones are because I don't really care that much. But if you display something that's 300 pixels at 72 pixels per inch on a latest, greatest iPhone, it's going to look fuzzy and blurry because that iPhone's going to have to kind of size that image up. So how you get around this is you make the image twice as large as you want and then size it back down. That way it looks crisp and clear on the latest, greatest iPhone, the latest, greatest MacBook screen, and it also looks crisp and clear on an older 72 pixel per inch monitor. So to do this, we simply say background size, 300 pixels, and that's going to automatically apply to the width. The height will be taken care of automatically. Great. And then if I also were to bump this height up to 90, you'd see we got a little problem here. It's automatically looping that logo. Let me make it 190. You can see that logo is just going to loop and loop and loop. So we want to do background repeat, none, or no repeat, no dash repeat. You would think it'd be none, but it's no dash repeat. So there we go. Now it doesn't loop at all. And I can change this height to go back to 80 pixels, which is pretty much where I want it to be. One more thing that I want to do is I want to actually tell this thing, I want to hack the way that this thing displays, and I want to make it display up a little bit so this arrow will line up with all of my text links. So the way that I can do that is I can go to top, and I can say, hey, your top actually needs to start at negative 40 pixels. But when I save it, nothing happens. So if I want that display to actually go up from the top, I have a little trick that I have to do. I have to go position relative. And that's going to say, hey, now I can kind of adjust my box relative to the guys that I'm sitting in line with. So if I give it a position relative, now I can move the top and say, hey, my top actually starts 40 pixels above everybody else's. Without position relative, you're going to be frustrated because top will never work. Position relative is just this little hack, this little thing with CSS you have to know if you ever want to manually adjust where the box begins. So 40 pixels looks like a little too much. Let's try 30 pixels. Boom. Looking excellent. Okay, there we have our logo. You can see that as we size left and right, that all looks good. I do want to make this centered though. So on the header, I'm going to make it text align center. So now at this point, it should always be nice and centered on our page. Yay, no matter what device loads this up, whether it's a big screen, whether it's a small screen. About the only thing that probably looks bad is a mobile screen. Yeah, mobile looks stupid. You always have to take some steps to make sure mobile looks good, and we will get to those in the next video. But for now, that is looking nice. Okay, moving on. We've got our header going. It's looking nice. Let's go ahead and add a background image to really wrap up this header. I like for my headers to be the tall ones that have that hero image type of thing. So instead of 100 pixel height, let's make it a 400 pixel height. Let me also alphabetize this Didn't quite alphabetize that correctly. H-I-J-K-L-M-N-O-P. There you go. And that's good. Let's get rid of this home H1 and just add a nice big hero image in there. And so the hero image is going to be done exactly the same way. Background image. And I'm going to leave that background color because as the website loads up, if you happen to be on a slower internet connection, I like seeing that black box to say, hey, this is kind of a section. So that way you kind of get a sense of the layout while it's loading. Background image URL. Let's go images, hero. Oh, nice. It's already selected. Hero.jpg. And boom, we've got our hero image. Again, it's a lot bigger than we want it to be. So let's go to background size. And instead of a pixel, I'm going to say 100%. I always want it to be 100% of the width. So now that as the devices are grown, let's say you view it on a tablet horizontally or view it on a huge screen, it's always going to fill out 100%. That works, although default, the background position is going to be the top. You notice that we always are seeing the top as the screen gets really, really big. So instead, I'm actually going to say background position center. And now it'll always stay centered as you get on a really big screen. You get this nice little oatmeal loafy thing. So that's always going to look good. Again, on mobile, it's probably not going to look right. Yep, on mobile, you can see it's repeating. That's because this really shouldn't be 400 pixels tall on mobile. Again, we'll deal with it in the next video when we deal with responsive design. So boom, there's our header. That's how you do background images in CSS. Really, you just want to make sure those images are always a lot bigger, and then you scale them back down. So next up, we're going to go and add actual IMG tags down here because these are kind of a part of the content. They're a part of the article. So let's go over to the HTML. We have a section class equals features, and then we have 3 divs in here. So I'm going to change these. Let's get rid of them. To insert an image, you just do an IMG tag, and there's really easy to work with. You just add a source, images/breads, and boom, it's inserted. These are 400 by 400. I cropped them down in Photoshop. You can use your favorite image editor to do that. They're 400 by 400 because I want them to show as 200 by 200. Amazing. Fresh baked bread. You're going to add an alt tag for 2 reasons whenever you add an image. One, it allows screen readers to kind of get a description to the visually impaired of what that image is showing. And 2, it also allows Google and search engines to properly index your page. If your page has a lot of images, like a good website should, there's not a lot of words for Google to pick up on. So this basically provides words to the image, so your website will be easier to show up on search engines. We'll have an easier time showing up on search engines. Now, in this case, we're going to add a caption as well. And you can add a caption 2 ways. You could add an H4 or a P tag or something and say fresh baked bread. And that's going to show up there. And then we can use CSS to move it around. But whenever you have an image and a caption that goes with it, the more technically correct way to do it is to add a figure tag, which is an HTML5 semantic tag. It's just like section or header or nav. It doesn't do anything. It basically acts like a div, but it basically tells us more semantically what's going on. A figure tag expects 2 things to be inside of it: an IMG tag and also, what's going on? And also a fig caption. A fig caption tag right there. The fig caption is basically our caption. So let's cut this out. Paste it in there, and we're done. You can see that also kind of lays out more like divs layout. So there's our first one. Let's copy and paste and copy and paste. So this will be coffee. We'll just call it fresh baked coffee. Just be lazy for now. And then we'll call this, I don't know, it's not gourmet coffee these days, right? Because that's like what they marketed to our parents. What is it, like artisan coffee now? Everything's artisan. Home, it's not brewed, roasted, home roasted coffee, right? That's what everybody does. They roast it in-house. So we got our home roasted coffee. Boom. Oh, that's lovely. And then we also have goods, market goods, home goods, sure, whatever. And goods market. Man, I don't even know what you say with this. Market? Sure, that's going to work. We got our goods market. So now with a couple CSS rules here, we can make this look really nice. Let's go over to our style CSS. You can see it's doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And the reason it's doing that is because there's basically no styles attached to it. So this section will make that features. I think I called it features. Yeah, class equals features. That's this whole section here. Features has padding. It has display flex. It has a flex direction, a background of white. Good, good, good. That's what we want. It has a color of gray. That's why this is getting a color of gray. And instead of all divs, we want features, figure. Those will get a width of 100 pixels, background of blue. We don't really want that anymore. Let's get rid of the background blue. And the margin auto, which makes them automatically lay out nicely. Now we're getting some overflow here because this has a width of 100 pixels and we're putting 400 pixel images into it. So they're just kind of bleeding over into their neighbors. So now what we can do is actually add some style to those images. Features. Figure img. Let's give them a width of, let's go 200 pixels. I think 100 is going to be too small. So 200 pixels, boom, looking nice, laying out nicely. And I also want them to be circles. And a fun little trick you can do to make them circles is give them a border radius. If you give them a border radius of 10 pixels, they have rounded corners. See that? Nice little rounded corners. But if you give them a border radius of 50%, well, that's basically what it takes to make it a circle. The radius goes 50% and then 50% and ta-da. So now they're lovely little circles. Let's make the figures have a text line of center. Sorry, I kind of stumbled and stammered there a little bit. And as I'm throwing these things out there, you might not know all these CSS properties, right? So I might use things like text align or text indent. And you don't have to freak out like you're not some real developer when you see a CSS property you've never seen before. There's tons of CSS properties out there, some that you hardly ever use, and most of them that are your bread and butter. You use them all day, every day. You can see even as I'm building out this website, I keep coming back to the same things over and over again: width and margin and background and color and padding. That's most of what you use. And every so often you'll run across a CSS property and you're like, what the heck is this? And then you Google it and you find out what it is. That doesn't mean you're not a developer. Oftentimes, if you haven't used a certain property for 6 months or a year, you're going to forget about it anyway. So Googling and learning and forgetting and remembering, that's just a part of being a web developer. So don't be intimidated as I'm throwing out these properties like text indent that you might not have seen before. It doesn't mean you're an idiot. Well, you may be an idiot. I don't know that for sure. So moving on, let's make a little bit of design here to make this look prettier. I'm going to give it a little bit of a shadow, just a really subtle shadow, and also a border. That's kind of a nice way to make images that are circles look good. The way you do a shadow is box shadow. And box shadow takes 4 properties. It takes the color, let's just say black for now. And then it takes the offset of horizontal, let's say 10 pixels horizontally, 10 pixels vertically. That might be vertical and horizontal. I always forget which order. And then how wide that shadow is, a 10 pixel shadow. So you can see that it offset at 10 pixels, offset at 10 pixels, and then it's 10 pixels worth of blur. Well, we don't actually want that offset. Let's just go 0 and 0. And so now it stays right behind it, and it's just got that lovely little 10 pixels of blur. I'm going to change that color to gray. Change that color to gray. It's a very subtle shadow now, but just enough to give it a little pop that we want. One thing that bad designers do is they almost always way overblow stuff, 50 pixels and black. They almost always make stuff look just ridiculous. So to be a good designer, it's all about subtle little things. Let's also give it just a border of 1 pixel solid white. So that way we're going to have this tiny little white border that goes on with that tiny little gray shadow behind it. I don't know, it just has a little subtle look to it. You can tweak on this stuff forever and come up with really, really cool looks, but that's good enough for now. I think the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make that figure caption have a little bit of text to it, which I can actually just apply these rules straight to the figure. Let's see, let's do a text transform of uppercase. So it's all uppercase. Ta-da! It's better to do this in CSS than to actually do it in the HTML because you're not shouting at people, right? You're not going, fresh baked bread. You know, you're actually saying fresh baked bread. You just want it to design-wise have caps. So that's the way to do that. And wow, I think we're looking pretty darn good here. I don't really like that gray color. I think that should be something else, but I'm going to leave it for now. That could be tweaked on. Let's just kind of give this footer a little something, and we are done. We kind of have a design here. So obviously, if I was laying out the rest of this web page, I'd have 2 or 3 sections, maybe one with our specials, one to, you know, sign up for our email list, stuff like that. But it's all the exact same thing. You're adding content, you're adding images, nothing too crazy. So let's just say, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 Main Street. And then what are we? Edwardsville, Illinois. Let's go and add a little dot by hitting Option 8. That's kind of the way you add one of those little bullet characters. 555, 555, 5555. And us@me.com. There's our footer. Da-da-da-da. And let's go ahead and maybe add some style to the footer as well. Let's give it some color of gray and text align of center. And I don't know, that padding's a little bit, let's make it 20 pixels indeed. Ta-da! And I'll also make this font size just a little bit smaller. 10 pixels. A little too small, 12 pixels. There we go. So we basically got our website done. You can see, man, it's looking like a good website. If we had more content, then this would actually be all the way down at the bottom when you scroll down, because there would be content pushing it down. But that's pretty much it. So a little bit of cleanup we can do here. Let's go ahead. This should be NavUL, right? We never want to target all ULs and LIs across our whole page. That'll just be frustrating. So let's go ahead, copy these, move these up to where the header rules are. That's always a good idea. You want to keep your stuff together. I'm going to add a comment by hitting Command and /. That's kind of a little hotkey to add a comment. Anything in between these pieces of code here will not be CSS. It's just comments that we can make. So I can say header, and then I can go down here. That's all our header rules. Nice. Features. This is going to help us just as we're kind of scrolling through. Those comments have that green color on purpose. So now as you're kind of looking, it's a lot easier to scroll through and see where your CSS rules are. Man, that's about it. This website came together. How much time do we spend on this? Like maybe an hour max, and we kind of have a whole complete look, assuming that someone already took pictures for us and had a logo for us. Web development is not impossible. It's a bunch of little skill sets. So that covers it for now. In the next video, we're going to handle responsive design. We're going to make this look better on mobile devices. We did a really good job with our content to where it looks good on all the other devices. It's just not going to look so good on mobile. So we'll handle that. That's called responsive design. We'll catch you on the next video.